Hi, thank you for joining me for the fifth session in our series, Introduction to Puberty Education. I'm Wendy Sellers, a registered nurse and a certified sexuality educator. I'm also the author of Puberty, the Wonder Years. In this video, I'll share ways to use a question box during puberty education classes. So what is a question box? It's a strategy for collecting anonymous student questions, and we'll talk about why it's beneficial in a moment. The question box can be a physical box, such as a cardboard box, a shoe box, a hat, a basket, or a bucket, anything that will hold paper that students write their questions on. Or it can be a digital collection device, such as a Google form or a Padlet or some other digital tool. Be sure that the questions are truly anonymous if you're collecting the questions through a digital collector. Otherwise, you need to let the students know that they're not anonymous. So how do you use a question box? Give each student a slip of paper and tell them that it is their exit ticket after the puberty lesson. You could use small cut up pieces of paper or 3x5 cards. It doesn't have to be very large. And then you tell the students that they can write one of two things on their card or slip of paper. They could write a question that they have, and you will answer it during the next puberty class. If they don't have a question, they could write a comment, such as something they learned or liked about the class that day. Tell the students that every student must submit their slip of paper into the question box and that they shouldn't put their names on their slips of paper so that it's an anonymous strategy. Now, the reason every student has to put a slip of paper in the box is because that's the only thing that keeps it truly anonymous. If only one or two students come up and put a slip of paper in the question box, everyone's going to know that they're the students who asked the question. So the benefits, it assures anonymity, and some students will feel much more comfortable asking their questions if there's not a name on the question. And they can ask questions that they might be too embarrassed about to ask verbally in front of the whole class. So it does reduce embarrassments and encourages the students. It also is a benefit that it gives the educator time to review the questions after class and prepare answers. You can also look up things. You can ask your administration whether you're allowed to talk about that topic, and you can group like questions. It's also a benefit because it encourages student participation, because every student knows they have to put a slip of paper in the question box. It also reduces distraction during your instruction time because every student has a task, and so they want to attend to the lesson more so that they can formulate their question or comment for the question box. And then finally, it also provides you with a record of student questions. Some student questions you will see asked over and over again, year after year. And if you take some time to compile the questions, you can formulate your answers and document them, and then it cuts down on your prep time in the future. Plus, if you're asked by the administration, how puberty class is going, you might want to share one or two questions that you found intriguing or insightful. Now, what happens if you get a red flag question in the question box? It's going to be anonymous, so you won't know who asked the question. Here's what you do if a question comes into the question box that causes some concern for you. Be alert to clues that there might be abuse going on. Remember, you're a mandated reporter, and so if you have a suspicion, you will want to report that to get help. Always have the classroom teacher present in the class if you're there as a guest presenter. If you're the classroom teacher, then you will know your students better than anyone else. And so having the regular classroom teacher in the class can give you another set of eyes to look for unusual behaviors or reactions that the students have during puberty class. Now, I had a question in the question box that created some alarm for me. The question was, is it okay if my uncle always wants me to sit on his lap? Well, this raised a red flag that this could be an abusive situation. And so here's how I handled it. I read the question out loud, and then I answered it in a generic fashion. And I asked the person who wrote the question to see me after class to get more information. So here's how I did it. I read the question. Today in the question box, this question came in. Is it okay if my uncle always wants me to sit on his lap? The answer is that depends. If sitting on your uncle's lap is something that you are doing voluntarily, that you want to do that you don't feel uncomfortable doing that, and that you have the right to say no if you don't want to do that, then that might be fine for you. However, if an uncle's asking you to sit on his lap and you don't want to, or you're being forced to, or you have that uncomfortable uh-oh feeling in your body, or if your uncle makes you do this over and over again in spite of you not wanting to do it, then that's probably not okay for you or for the uncle. And so in that case, you would want to say no and get help from a trusted adult. Now, I'd like to talk more about this question. So if the person who wrote this question would come up and see me after class, I would like to give you some more information. If you want to bring a friend with you to come and talk to me, that's fine too. But I look forward to talking to you more after class. All right, so that's how I managed that situation when I had a red flag question in the question box. And indeed, the student did come up after class. They brought a friend with them to talk with me. And after talking with the student a little more, I had a suspicion that abuse may be taking place. Now, I didn't need to prove it. I didn't need to ask the student a lot of questions. As soon as I had a suspicion, I stopped asking the student questions and explained that I was going to get help for the situation. And so I did make a report, and it did turn out to be a reportable situation. Here are some additional tips. The question box works best if you're in a series of puberty classes rather than a one-time event. If it's a one-time event, you don't really have time to draw the questions out and compose your answers. You still could do that, but you'd still be answering the questions sort of on the spur of the moment on your feet. You also want to make sure every student puts their slip of paper in every time, or it's not truly anonymous. You want to group similar questions so you're not answering the same question over and over and over again. So that will help you also shorten the time that you need to answer the questions. Now, let's say you get a question that you're not allowed to read in the class because of your school rules. If that's the case, it's really important to tell the students. For example, say, I'm not allowed to answer some questions in this class. And that way they know that you got the question. And they understand rules, and so they will know that you have rules also. You always want to affirm the student that the ask of the question, even if you can't answer it. You could also, if it's a question that's going to be in the next lesson, you could say, I got this question, read the question, and say, we'll be talking about this in tomorrow's class, so I'll answer it then. And then another thing to say is if you don't read their question, tell them why. If I didn't answer your question, it is still a valid question, and you can ask your parent or other trusted adult to help you find the answer. Now it's your turn to apply how you will apply this information. When will you try the question box? What will you use for your question box?